Fantasy season is here. Make sure you are prepared at ultimatedraftkit.com. And on today's show, we get into the nitty-gritty with the quarterbacks. The top 10, that's out of the way. That's the easy stuff. 11 through 20 and a little bit beyond. This is where the real discussions are happening. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, like this video, and enjoy the show.
Summer is a time for excitement, so go ahead and switch things up with a new recipe from HelloFresh. With pre-measured ingredients and easy-to-follow directions, it's never been easier to try something new. Get up to 14 free meals, including free shipping with the code FOOTBALLERS14 at HelloFresh.com/footballers14.
Foot Clan, there are hundreds of companies out there claiming to compare auto and home insurance rates, but there's only one that does it right. Get a better insurance with Gabi. Gabi is the one true comparison platform with fast, verifiable quotes, not ballpark guesses. Get that crap out of here. Use your current policy to find a better one, comparing your current coverage with 40 of the top insurance providers like Progressive, Nationwide, Travelers, all in one place. I jumped on there. I ran the test. Andy, you ran
I did it too.
It's super easy. Just plug in your information and boom.
I call it a cakewalk.
Yes, and right there they show you, hey, we're going to save you money. And Gabi customers save $961 per year on average. They're not going to sell your info, no annoying spam or robocalls. Put your policy to the test like I did. Get a better insurance with Gabi. It's totally free to check. There's no obligation. Go to Gabi.com/footballers. That's GABI.com/footballers. Gabi.com/footballers.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Oh, welcome in. Monday, August 16th, the Fantasy Footballers back with you, fresh off of preseason week 1.
Oh, that was really an exciting week of preseason football. Preseason week 1 is usually just, oh, you're hyped, football's back. You get a couple crumbs here and there of actual stars, but there was a lot of juicy information.
Well, that's because right now a lot of the stars are technically backups, so they're allowed to play in week 1. It's great.
We didn't have a preseason last year.
Correct.
So we haven't reacted to preseason week 1 in 2 years.
Also a fair point.
Mike Wright, Jason Moore, Andy Holloway. You can follow Mike at FF Hitman on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Decent follow over there.
That's what the people are saying.
Jason is Jason at Jason FFL. I'm at
Great
Andy Holloway.
follow is what the people are saying.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot of feedback on following you.
Check his timeline. It's just, what an incredible follow.
Sometimes he is irresponsible with his Twitter account and leaves scathing AJ Green related jokes on my tweets.
Yeah, that's usually what I'm good for.
But we have a great show today. NFL news to talk about, some preseason week 1 reaction, hopefully appropriate reaction. Quarterback rankings part 2 on the show today. So let's just kick that off with the quick question. What are your biggest takeaways from preseason week 1 without losing our minds?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I had 2. My big overarching thought from week 1 was that I thought all the rookie quarterbacks looked what you hope they look like. I'm not overreacting and saying, oh, they're Justin Fields and Trey Lance, that pass is going to be the greatest. But it was really nice to see. I thought Justin Lawrence,
Trevor
Lawrence. I always call him Justin Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence looked good.
Justin Lawrence is an actor from the 80s.
Oh, fantastic.
He was on a sitcom.
Was that 90210?
Something like that.
Whoa! So he looked good. I thought Justin Fields looked good. Obviously, the pass heard around the world from Trey Lance was, despite his full game stat line not being what you would say good, and then
4 drops.
But my of all 4, Zach Wilson, he actually looked. He had some zip on the ball, and outside of one bad pass, I was pleasantly surprised by the rookies this week.
Mike?
Yeah, the quarterbacks was the big takeaway.
Oh, we were thinking Joey Lawrence from Blossom.
Yeah, that's come on, people, keep up. The biggest takeaway was the rookie quarterbacks looking good, looking like they will have their time. But as far as actionable fantasy football, we had to go update the rankings. It was Jason's ice player from a week or two ago, Myles Gaskin, running back for the Miami Dolphins, hopeful presumed starter. No, he was not the starter. It was in fact Malcolm Brown, who got the vast majority of snaps. And then you have Brian Flores coming out today saying it's going to be a three-headed monster at the running back position. And if you were spending that 4th, 5th round pick on Myles Gaskin, it looks like that's going to feel really, really bad in about 3 weeks.
As the baller here who could victory lap this,
yes.
I don't expect Malcolm Brown to be the starter. Gaskin will be the starter. He'll get the majority of the work. But I think that what you saw is what came out today is it's not going to be what it was last year, where all of the work was to him when he was out there on the field. He had a really large market share of the running back room, and I think there will be more involvement. Malcolm Brown and Ahmed will be involved on a normal Sunday.
And for Gaskin,
especially in the red zone for Malcolm Brown. That's the biggest concern I had coming into the year was, they beat writers in Miami said don't overreact. They said, last preseason it was all Jordan Howard, it was all non-Gaskin running backs, and you didn't want to overreact to it. They still expect him to get the majority of the work, like Jason said.
But he has to get the work that he received last year to really pay off being a 5th round pick.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
And we saw a couple other takeaways. No one really separated themselves in New Orleans at the quarterback position. Both players threw interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Payton wasn't going to come out and say somebody's leading that. Drew Lock looked pretty darn good.
Yeah, I switched. I had Teddy Bridgewater down as my quarterback for the season, and I did make the switch because talk out of camp is that Drew Lock has been, getting the first team reps, and then you saw it, right? He came out week 1. He was the first guy out, and he didn't do anything to say here's the thing. Teddy Bridgewater can't win the job, right? Drew Lock.
Yes, correct.
They want Drew Lock to be the guy, and Drew Lock can easily give the job to Teddy, but he hasn't so far. So I think it is Drew Lock's job to lose now.
And if Drew Lock has anything of a average performance in week 2, it's done. He'll be the starter.
All right. Let's jump into the news. Before we do that, I want to remind you the time is now. So if you need to get ready for your draft, head over to ultimatedraftkit.com. That's where you'll find our tier-based rankings, the 100-plus player profile videos, all our sleepers, breakouts, bust picks, consistency charts, the draft analyzer. Everything you need to dominate your draft is at ultimatedraftkit.com.
News and notes from around the league, presented by Sleeper.
Dak is back. Yeah. Expected to practice on a limited basis today. Saw him throwing the football a little bit before the Cardinals-Cowboys preseason game. So we'll see. The MRIs have revealed things healing appropriately right now. So optimism, perhaps. Curtis Samuel has returned from the PUP.
Yeah, baby! Let's go!
Oh, man. The audience loves it.
Yeah. I'm very excited about this, but I don't want to overreact because he's done nothing.
All right.
I just, put on a thunderous applause for him.
That's it. That's
Showing up.
Come on, Curtis.
Jonnu Smith suffered a low ankle sprain.
Hey.
He's had a lot of ankle sprains.
Yeah.
And then Hunter Henry, I almost called him Henry Hunter.
Hunter.
Which you can reverse it if you want.
Now, does he get the H back now that he is no longer playing with Justin Herbert?
He gets the H back when he's healthy.
Oh, so right now he's healthy right now?
Yes. Limited at practice. Elijah Moore day-to-day with a quad injury. Anthony Miller, slight dislocation of the right shoulder.
This one's sad to me. He's had multiple.
He's on the Texans now, by the way.
Right. Yes. He's had multiple shoulder surgeries, and I remember, I think it was only 2 years ago, where he looked so promising, and then the shoulder injuries got in the way, and now Darnell Mooney said goodbye, and now his shoulder said, "See you later."
Yeah.
Kadarius Toney aggravated an injury, did not play in the preseason game, so he's been banged up throughout camp.
Well, he was on. I think he was on the COVID list, right, to start. I mean, this is a disastrous start for
Mike,
Kadarius Toney.
You should share what you said on our company Slack because I think it's delightful.
So that came in, and I just said, "Hey guys, have you ever wanted to drop a first-round wide receiver from your dynasty team before he's ever taken a snap?"
It's a unique situation here with Kadarius.
And I knew when
Well, you've never been the biggest fan.
No one was. I knew when I drafted him.
When you wrote this, I was shocked you had drafted. I was like, wait a minute. How did Mike do that?
It was the back of the second round in the rookie draft, and it was.
You had talked his value down so much. He's sitting there in the back of the second round.
Yeah, and I said, he's still a first-round wide receiver. Let me punch myself in the face.
You know what?
John Ross got me too.
We buried the real preseason takeaway that I am choosing to lean into, which was that horrific Daniel Jones interception.
Oh.
Did you get to see that, Mike?
Yes.
There wasn't a wide receiver on his side of the ball within 30 yards of where he threw it.
Miscommunication.
That was called closing your eyes and throwing.
Well, to be fair, he didn't have Kadarius Toney, so that it'll all be fixed soon.
Maybe he had thought he was there. He is smaller. He probably thought he was hiding back behind the linebackers. All right, that was today's news and notes brought to you by Sleeper, the largest dynasty platform. Just turned our family Sleeper League back on today. Our draft, we're doing a slow draft, and it starts on Friday.
Oh, very excited.
So Mike got the first pick, well, Mike and his son.
Yes.
And very curious what you do with that number one pick, Mike. Lots of options.
Well, if my son has his way, it'll be some random player.
I'd go A.J. Green at 101.
No, he won't do that, thankfully.
Okay.
Smart boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, smart boy.
Quarterbacks.
All right, this is a fun show. We get to do the second rankings show for the quarterback position. Covered 1 through 10 on Friday's episode. Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Ryan Tannehill. That was our top 10. You can go back and listen to all of our discussions and analysis on Friday's episode.
These quarterbacks are extremely important today because while we did bring up Ryan Tannehill, Tom Brady, guys that we are often drafting because they do slip a little bit later, look, in certain drafts, if the target or two you're after is taken before you select them, we are, as a show, usually a late-round quarterback drafting entity, in which case these are the quarterbacks you need to know this year. Who is it that is in that – every year there's so many great quarterbacks. There were 38 quarterbacks that had a top 12 performance this last year, and the guys we're talking about today, many of them will be undrafted and can be great for fantasy.
And this week we have not just our My Guys episode, but we have our Tips and Tricks episode where we're trying to give you some advice, some things that you can do, some intangibles that can impact your season. Late-round quarterbacks, that's one of those pieces. And one of the things you should pay attention to when looking at them is that opening schedule to the year. You don't want to draft a quarterback late that you're looking to stream, and then they have a brutal opening 3 weeks, and then you're like, well, the guys had them on their streaming quarterback list. Just be willing to pivot, to move between these guys. Yeah, 38 of them finished within the top 12. But not a lot of those 38 you could lock into your lineup each and every week.
Sure.
So, during the season, we have our quarterback streaming segment every Tuesday where we're picking out that week's matchups and the quarterbacks we like.
From the waiver wire.
Exactly. And last year on this specific episode, the 3 names that we brought up that were big-time contributors to championship teams were Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and Ryan Tannehill, whose ADP was all 3 of those guys were outside the top 10. So let's look at number 11 here. Kick it off with Jalen Hurts, quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. I have him at 13, Jason at 10, Mike at 9. I am not in any way naive to the upside of Jalen Hurts because he runs the football and runs it well. My concerns around Jalen Hurts are all in the periphery, the wide receiving room, the weapons that he has. Not enough sample size last year to know how defenses are going to play him. So I just think it could be an up-and-down struggle. There were a lot of people excited about Gardner last year, but I was worried about Jacksonville, not Gardner. I have the same concerns about Philadelphia this year, not about Jalen the player.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is you're 100% right. The Eagles don't look like they're going to be great, and his receiving core is really not good right now.
It hinges on
unless Devontae Smith comes back and is dominant in his rookie year, which I think there's reason for hope that is true. But if that hope does not come to fruition, then this is an objectively poor receiving core. The nice thing though is that he runs the ball, and if you were to throw for 200 yards, which is putrid, but you're adding 50 rushing yards on the ground. That's like Tom Brady throwing for 330 yards. It's fine. It's great for fantasy. That's the same exact score, and he is one of the few guys that could actually legitimately rush for 1,000 yards. I mean, on his 4-game pace, he was on pace for 1,100 yards. Obviously, super small sample, but the level of rushing ability here is, Josh Allen's thought of as a rushing quarterback. You're talking about double the rushing yardage of Josh Allen with someone like Jalen Hurts.
Let me ask you this then. If Devontae Smith, who's recovering from injury, isn't available to start the year, is this a pick that you could regret? Because you don't have a full ensemble of weapons. You start the year on the road, then you play San Francisco. Like, is there a chance that you don't even want to put him out there the first couple of weeks because he doesn't have the upside you'd hope for?
Possibly week 2. Excuse me, but week 1 is Atlanta. So it's on the road. Sure, not where I want a tier quarterback in this tier starting this season, but it's Atlanta. The defense is bad. Then San Francisco, that could be a rough matchup, and then it's Dallas. I mean, so 2 of those first 3 weeks are sensational starts for Jalen Hurts, and Jason is correct here. Of if he runs for 900 yards, which should be well within a reasonable projection for Jalen Hurts, who had over 350 rushing yards in 4 starts last year. If he hits that 900 mark, he'll be a top 12 quarterback by the end of the year.
I think teams are going to force him to throw the football. I think that's going to be the equation for this season.
Possible. I mean,
last year, in that sample size that we're talking about with that nice 68-yard rushing baseline, he had the worst adjusted completion percentage in the NFL.
Right, but I'm sure that teams are thinking we're going to force Lamar Jackson to run to throw, and there's just some guys who are you can't necessarily lock that game plan in. Jalen Hurts is a very athletic guy. He's not Lamar, but he runs very well.
All right, so at 12 we have the Saints quarterback?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, right now, if you're looking at the rankings, sometimes people rightly get confused when they look at our rankings. They're like, you don't have Jameis Winston, Jameis Winston's quarterback 30 or whatever. Really, where we have Taysom Hill, and they would be different, slightly different. But Taysom Hill is who we have decided to stack because we don't want to have 2 quarterbacks to be, up here at 12, pushing some other quarterback down a spot when the reality is both of them can't finish as the quarterback, 12-ish. Right. So right now we have it as Taysom. He has been the guy that started last season when Drew Brees went down. He got the first start in preseason week 1. So right now he's the guy. Whispers from the bushes are that it might be Jameis Winston. And
we still don't know.
Yeah, it's just unknown. So we really should discuss both. I've statted both out, and it's been surprising how close together because it's totally different how their stats come, but they're very similar to each other in fantasy when I've done that.
This might be your sneakiest quarterback pickup possible this offseason because everybody's mock drafting. Everybody's going through the motions. Everybody's looking at the rankings. And nobody knows who the quarterback is in New Orleans, and yet that represents a top 12 option. I mean, if it's Taysom, he was the quarterback 4-11, 8-11 last year in his 4 starts. If it's Jameis, then you know he's going to throw the football a lot, and he has fantasy upside even if he throws interceptions. So there's a chance that you end up with these two guys being completely ignored in your draft. Even because, let's say they declare one the quarterback. Isn't there still going to be question marks around a transition? I mean, you're not going to – okay, Jameis, you're the starter, and he throws 9 picks in the first 3 weeks. Probably going to see a change at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, possible. And if it is declared that it's Jameis, you're going to have some people, well, how are they going to use Taysom? Are they still going to rotate him in every once in a while? Are they going to, have him, do a platoon here of 2 quarterbacks, which could drive down the ADP of Jameis, even if he is named the starter? I like both of these guys for fantasy purposes. Regardless of who is named the starter, I agree that there is value to be had. You have no idea who it is right now, and grabbing it, like, let's say you even if you're drafting right now, you're drafting early, which I've talked to some people. They've, due to scheduling, they've had to do their actual drafts already. If you're drafting both Taysom and Jameis as your final 2 positional picks, I'm actually okay with that. And find out who the starter is, and then before week 1, drop the other quarterback and pick up a waiver player.
I am more excited about Taysom's security because of the same reasons you just made for Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's going to run the football. He's going to run it into the end zone. If Jameis is the quarterback and you don't have Michael Thomas and you don't have Traquan Smith, or he's hobbled, and you don't know what Troutman's going to bring to the table, like
Marquez Callaway.
Yeah, I mean,
he looked nice.
That's an argument for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Callaway should be, one of those guys that you're taking a shot on late in drafts, but you're 100. I mean, yes, if that is who could lead this team right now for the first half of the year in targets and receptions, that's a scary proposition. We talked a lot of trash about the receiving options for the Eagles, and they're better. I mean, that's a better receiving core over there with Goddard and Ertz and Rager and Devontae Smith than this core is right now. I was sharing with Mike, and Andy, I'm curious your thought, because he did not think that there was really a chance. But I started questioning, is there just a chance that the Saints are not good this year? I mean, their offense could really fall apart here pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could end up a 500 team. They were good last year with a limited Drew Brees. They have a great defense. But yeah, they could end up ping-ponging between quarterbacks, and one major injury. I don't know how you win a game without Alvin Kamara. So
right.
if he was to leave, like, they've had multiple weapons before where you could lose one for a little while, but without Alvin Kamara, I don't know how they score enough points. So
yeah, very, very shallow roster. But if Taysom is the starter, that rushing baseline will be great.
Yeah.
All right, before we get to Kirk Cousins, our next quarterback on the list, I want to thank today's sponsors. IP Vanish is a great way to protect yourself online. If you ever feel like you're being followed around on the internet, people snooping into your business, probably, I was going to say, probably is happening. Well, longtime sponsor IP Vanish is a VPN, a virtual private network, here to take back your privacy and your control. It is very, very easy to install, to use. You can put it on your computers, your tablets, your phones, even things like your Fire Stick when you're streaming media, and protect yourself. If you're going on public Wi-Fi's, which you have to do more and more common, maybe the menu at the restaurant is on a QR code. Well, you want to log on to their Wi-Fi. You want to protect yourself. And right now, for listeners of the show, they're giving an incredible 65% off their annual plan, which is equal to 6 months free. So go to ipvanish.com/footballers to claim your 65% savings. The annual plan is just $44.99 for the first year with our exclusive discount, and this is the time to sign up. With our discount and their current promotion, you can get a VPN for 65% off their usual offering. IPVanish, best of the best, even rated 4.7 out of 5 on Trustpilot, and that's with more than 6,000 reviews. Remember, it's ipvanish.com/footballers to get the deal and start protecting yourself today.
We also want to thank FanDuel for supporting the podcast and the show. New FanDuel players, listen up. Your day is about to get 20% better.
How's that?
Well, you start by playing, you're playing fantasy football this season, and FanDuel is going to give you a 20% bonus.
Oh, that makes sense.
That sounds like 120% better because fantasy football's great.
That's true. If you start at 100, now it's at 120. Now they're giving you a 20% bonus on your first deposit. That's up to $500 free on FanDuel. That's what we call a BTB. That's a big-time bonus.
Yes.
And all you need to do to claim it is make your first deposit on FanDuel. You know the story. Look, you set new lineups every single day. They've got tons of different game formats, main slate, single game, best ball, snake draft. You can even play private contests with your friends, get a little group together. Experience season-long wins without the season-long waits. Sign up today at FanDuel.com/FFF to claim your bonus and start playing today. That's FanDuel.com/FFF. Age and local restrictions apply. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires after 30 days. Captain Kirk time. Kirk Cousins. Tried and true.
Mm-hmm. Average.
Yeah, set your phasers to, all right.
I mean, that's true. And when I'm trying to picture other quarterbacks in the category of Kirk Cousins, I think when Kirk looks into the mirror, he sees Matt Ryan. And when Matt Ryan looks into the mirror, he sees Kirk Cousins, where these guys are reliable. Probably in the same category as Matthew Stafford when he was with Detroit. Really just, you're going to get an above average, but not elite quarterback performance most weeks.
Above average game manager.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are quarterbacks with tremendous risk week to week. Maybe you have a really strong team jam-packed with powerhouse wide receivers, powerhouse running backs. Kirk Cousins is going to get you through the week, and he's not going to hurt you. But the question on this show is he going to help you enough?
No.
Now, Jason,
Yes.
he's a late 12th round draft pick.
Yeah.
He passed for 4,200 yards. He had 35 touchdowns and just 13 interceptions. He has a player that could finish at 1 overall at the wide receiver spot. Like, it's not impossible for Justin Jefferson to do that. He was the quarterback 11 last year. He's being drafted as the quarterback 18. He had as many boom games as Deshaun Watson or Lamar Jackson combined.
Now, what is defining?
Now, why do you get to just discount all that because you think their defense is going to be a little bit better?
That's not the entire reason. I mean, when I look at his track record, you're right. He had a phenomenal year last year. That was the best he's been in several years. His passing touchdown rate was through the roof for him. I mean, career-wise, you're talking about a guy who's always been under 5%, pretty league average, around that 4.9. And now last season, he comes out and throws
35 and 13.
6.8%.
Yeah, 6.8% passing touchdown rate. And I've brought this up before. Obviously, they had to stay to try to get back in some games when they were giving up 35, 40, 50 points. And I don't see that happening this year with the Mike Zimmer defense. But I would argue that some of his ability to have those big boom games, while they happened to happen a few times last year, that it's really not his norm. He's Phillip Rivers of old, where he'll finish the season at maybe quarterback 11, quarterback 12. But through the year, it wasn't anybody that was really helping you. He just was – when he is bad, he's the quarterback 17. And you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't fall to quarterback 38 and implode and have some 5-turnover game that really drags him down. And so I think at the end of the year, his ranking will be fine, but he's not a quarterback that's going to help you win games in fantasy. And I just don't want it to be I would rather swing for the fences.
No.
I think you're wrong. Because the history of Kirk Cousins does not include Justin Jefferson, who might be the most explosive wide receiver in the game.
It included Stephon Diggs, who is awesome, and a younger Adam Thielen.
Would you not correlate? So last year's QB11 performance would have been the QB5 in 2019. We've talked about the quarterback scoring going through the roof. Like, this was the lowest fantasy finish ever for a 35-plus passing touchdown season. So this was an elite season from Kirk Cousins is what I want to get at. I correlate that to Justin Jefferson. I correlate that to, like, you look at the metrics for Jefferson, he's the best down the field that the NFL has right now. So I do think that there's the possibility that you saw a different precedent set for a player that has 3 top 10 finishes in his history that was quarterback 13 in a year when they had a great defense. So, Mike, help us out.
I'm in between. I think he's...
I mean, you are in between stats-wise, too. I'm at 11, Jason at 19. Mike, you have him at 13.
Yeah, he's... What I've been saying is he's the perfect quarterback, too. Now, if you... Let's say things go really sideways in your draft because you're waiting on a quarterback and then some kind of run happens at the end that you weren't projecting. You can start the season with Kirk Cousins, Cincinnati, Arizona, Seattle. Those are 3 solid matchups, at least based off of what happened last year with quarterbacks against those teams. So you could start with him. I would be searching for, hopefully you have someone with a higher ceiling because Kirk Cousins will be okay, but Kirk Cousins is not jumping in he's not jumping into the top 5. I don't think that's in the range of outcomes for him.
Maybe I'm just more sad that this next guy, Matt Ryan, is ranked higher than Kirk Cousins, where Cousins outperformed him last year. Matt Ryan lost the powerhouse of Julio Jones from his repertoire, and you have him 3 spots higher.
Well, they're very close in rankings, and they're very close in style and my desire to play them in fantasy. I'm not really all aboard Matt Ryan either. I mean, these are 2 guys that are going to throw for enough yards, at least with Matt Ryan. Their defense is going to suck, and he's going to have to play catch-up. Obviously, added Kyle Pitts, but I do think Matt Ryan is worse this year from Julio to Pitts than he was last year, and you're right, Kirk Cousins outproduced him last year. I just think Kirk Cousins is going to have normal touchdown regression come and the yardage come back down to a reasonable basis. But both of these players, I mean, this is like –
they're not late-round targets for you. Neither guy are late-round quarterback targets.
Right. They are not really my late-round quarterback targets. I just think they're going to finish plenty of weeks as the quarterback 8 or 9 or 10 throughout the year and finish with a good ranking, but not really have the upside I'm looking for.
Probably going to get 100 more pass attempts from Matt Ryan as well.
Yes, you will.
So Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage and company. You don't have Dalvin Cook siphoning, the amount of offense away from Matt Ryan either, if you want to make an argument for Matty Ice.
He opens up the season against Philadelphia, so that's also a solid Week 1 target.
Okay. And then he has the Giants in Week 3 as well.
I mean, and poor Matt Ryan, he only has the 3 seasons over 30 passing touchdowns. I mean, he's an absolute yardage monster. This guy, what Atlanta has done to Matt Ryan with a new offensive coordinator, averaging like every 2 years, he has to do a brand new system. It's ridiculous. So let's get some continuity here for Matt Ryan.
It's a little late.
I know it's a little.
I don't think it's coming for him at this point in his career.
Probably not.
Matthew Stafford at 15. Jason, you're the highest on Matthew Stafford. Is he an actual late-round target for you?
He is a late-round target for me. I don't think that his Week 1 matchup is as good as the other 2 guys, but at least here I see a path for the potential. Like when I draft one of these late-round quarterbacks, I want the idea that, oh, man, they have a path to be like a top 6 quarterback this year. And when I think about let me know, guys, if you have this thought ever, okay? Because I have this thought almost every year in hindsight. I say, there are these storylines.
Ice cream for breakfast.
Just right? It's okay, right?
Nice.
Ice cream for breakfast is okay.
Yeah, stop getting ashamed.
But at the end of every year, I look back and I think there are certain storylines that seem now in hindsight so obvious. Like we should have all seen it coming.
Sure.
And we didn't. No one saw it, like no one in the world, and it just came out of nowhere and we could have seen it coming. This is one of those storylines where I just wonder, like, look, Matthew Stafford plus Sean McVay, is this something where he really does just explode and the offense for the Rams is great because you've got a really smart, capable, quality quarterback with a really smart, capable offensive coordinator, good weapons, and I don't have him statted as anything otherworldly, but at least I see that potential and say,
yeah, is this a storyline we're all missing because we haven't seen him play for this team before? So it's
there's some hope and some upside that maybe he comes out and scorches the earth.
He has been ridiculously injury prone of late. I think that's the real fear for Matthew Stafford. He missed a lot of time, thumb and ribs and ankle and
back.
Then back and then thumb again this preseason, just like it wasn't serious, but we all winced a little bit more than we would have with somebody else that dealt with that injury. So I think that stands out a little bit. But I love Matthew Stafford, the player. I love the elite traits he brings to the position that Jared Goff certainly didn't possess. You've brought them up many times, Jason. The improvisation, the difficult window throws and arm angles and all of these things that they just didn't have. He can go win you a game. Now, they have one of the best defenses in football.
Mm-hmm.
So how much is Sean McVay's intelligence going to be channeled into game management, right? Don't make mistake type of Matthew Stafford might be what you need 3 out of 4 weeks. That's the another question mark.
Yeah, I mean that is one of the reasons that he moved up for me this offseason. When they lost Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson being their main guy, I think that they're going to need to step on the throat and really outscore people as opposed to say, let's control this game a little bit easier and give 25 carries to a running back while we've got a lead. I don't think Henderson would be able to do that, but your point is definitely fair. On a great defense, they're not going to need to score 45 points to win the game. But it's just one of those things where with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Tyler Higbee, Henderson's a good pass catcher. I could see. Remember, it wasn't that long ago, the season before last. Matthew Stafford was on fire, and then obviously he missed
the 2019.
Yeah, and then he missed half of that year. But he was a top 5 quarterback that we were all in love with.
Do you realize that Matthew Stafford has thrown for more than 30 touchdowns 2 times?
Yeah, he had a 40-plus, right, with Calvin?
Yeah, yes, the 40 in 2011, that was the year he went absolutely nuts. I mean, he also threw the ball 663 times that year, the 5,041 touchdowns. But that's wild to me because when you think of Matthew Stafford, at the beginning you think of the gunslinger. Calvin Johnson's already in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's who he was playing with, that level of talent. And yet we give Matt Ryan crap for the touchdown totals only being over 33 times. Stafford's only twice.
The Detroit Lions are the Adam Gase of teams in the NFL. There is a suppression effect that happens in Detroit.
Okay. Well, that's some strange analysis. There's just like an invisible dome covering the city.
Yeah, there is. There's kind of like a fog. Look, I don't want to. I already have, but I don't want to disrespect the Detroit fans. But look, you know what I'm talking about.
No offense.
I know.
I said no offense.
Look, it's just appropriate levels of what do we say about the head coaches there? There hasn't been a head coach of the Lions that has gotten rehired.
Right.
Ever,
ever.
Yeah.
Or in the last 10 coaches or something like that. There is a Brooks is messaging me right now. He says, Andy's right. You can feel it when you live nearby. There's a fog of defeat that settles over the field. And so it's still a well-received point. He hasn't hit that total. You've seen sample sizes, right? Like the year he got hurt 2 years ago, those first 8 games, he was on pace for 50 touchdowns.
Yeah, but that was it. I mean,
no, I know.
He's
that's why he's being drafted.
That's just wild.
That's why he's being drafted, later or without that potential promise.
I think that Stafford will do more game managing for the Rams.
I do too. Joe Burrow at 16. I don't want to draft him. He's completely off my board.
Oh man,
he's
Joe
going
Burrow.
in the 9th round of fantasy drafts. He's my 20th ranked quarterback. I have no interest in this experiment because I don't think the upside is there compared to everybody else that I could be taking. So I'd be taking Trevor Lawrence ahead of him. I'd take the shot there versus Joe Burrow. I know he has weapons all over the field, but I don't. ACL, MCL, PCL. Too many abbreviations for me to take the shot this year.
It's so brutal, that injury. moving the hopes and the dreams, at least for the beginning of this season, for Joe Burrow, moving him way down. Elite weapons all over. They just added a top 5 pick at the wide receiver position in Jamar Chase, and you know that the volume will be there. Like the Bengals are going to throw the ball. They're going to be near the league lead by the end of the year in terms of passing attempts. But that you combine all those things, recovering from the injury, they're opening against Minnesota, Chicago, and Pittsburgh. So if you're in, my advice, if you're in on Joe Burrow, is you wait. You don't draft him. Maybe he's great at the beginning and then you miss out. Sorry, but the way that I'm handling Joe Burrow is I'm looking to pick him up after that Pittsburgh game because he gets Jacksonville in week 4. See if there's any real signs of life. See if he's showing the promise of 2 years ago being the overall number 1 pick. See if any of that is there. If there's signs of life, then pick him up and move on from there.
I don't want to play Pittsburgh and Baltimore and Cleveland twice.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to need to do that every single year that he's a Bengal. It's just a question of whether he can step forward this year. I believe that he can, but I don't think it's going to happen in the beginning of the year. So I'm with Mike, and I'm with you, Andy. He's off my draft board. He's going in single-digit rounds. As you know, the quarterback 13 right now. He's my quarterback 16, but if I had to break down first half of the year versus second half of the year, he'd probably be near my quarterback 22, 23 for that first half of the season.
Yeah.
So he's a guy I'm looking for waivers, maybe a cheap trade later, and not even a cheap trade, waivers. He's going to get cut at some point.
It's also going to give you a chance to see if this offensive line is better than it was last year because, you know, there's some optimism and some hope. But just imagine the way that where T. Higgins would be in fantasy drafts if they had invested in Sewell instead of Jamar Chase. You'd have a clearer picture of the passing game. So he connected on just 9 of 48 deep targets last year.
Although Sewell kind of got schooled there in the preseason.
Sewell school?
Yep.
Got taken to school? Okay. 48 pass attempts a game. You're right. He's going to throw it a bunch, but there's some things he has to overcome. Trevor Lawrence, or as Jason calls him, Justin Lawrence, coming back, coming in at 17. He's being drafted as the quarterback 14, so there's a lot of excitement, and we'll see if that's warranted. I am the highest of the three of us right now. It's still behind ADP, but I have him at 16. You guys at 21, less optimism. Look, number 1 overall pick, going to have a chance to start from week 1, and lots of, you saw a little glimpse of this in the preseason game, seeing how they're going to utilize Laviska Shenault.
Marvin Jones, and that was another takeaway. We had moved on from that question.
Played every down, right?
But Marvin Jones, that's just one game, very small sample, but it looks like Marvin Jones is the wide receiver from this team that if you're going to draft any of them late, I would take Marv.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Chark was not there, so
right.
it could be look, if Chark's not there, Marvin's going to be the guy. But he did look really good, had a good connection with Lawrence, and I have no problem drafting Trevor Lawrence, calling your shot on Trevor Lawrence. He's a guy that doesn't get enough credit for his wheels, his legs. He put up a lot of rushing yards in college. I think he'll put up a good amount of rushing yards, a nice baseline. If he gets 250, 300 rushing yards this year, I will not be surprised, and that'll be a really nice baseline for a rookie. He's got Travis Etienne to dump the ball down to, and really Laviska Shenault, a lot of manufactured yardage on the screen game. So I'm fine with that. The problem is I'm not so bullish to draft him at his current ADP because he's in the 10th round. He's the quarterback 14th off the board, and usually around that place there are quarterbacks I have more confidence in this year, but I don't blame anyone for – I would much rather take the shot on Trevor Lawrence than grab a Matt Ryan type, even though I've got Matt Ryan a couple spots ahead because I think the probability says that Matt Ryan scores more fantasy points this year than Trevor Lawrence. I don't really care about scoring the quarterback 15th amount of points. I want someone that can really do something special for my fantasy roster, and maybe Trevor Lawrence can. Justin Lawrence.
I think that he's the perfect pick for late round fantasy flyer quarterbacks because you start against Houston, right?
That's great.
And then you get Denver, Arizona at home. No, it's okay.
Denver?
Well, look, this is a horrible defense. You saw this last year. The Jacksonville defense is that part of the equation is built in, right? Like they didn't do enough to recover this near last ranked defense. They're at home against Denver. I'm not terrified of that. And then they're at home against Arizona, not terrified. And then they're against Cincinnati. So, and if you see great things in those first 4 games,
right,
it's kind of the unknown upside. Maybe you have somebody that, like Jason said, he rushes the football a bunch, and Marvin Jones is making an impact, and ETN out of the backfield. Like, this is the first pick that we've talked about today where I'm like, okay, I'd take him if he slips to the 11th round, I'd take him and start him and just see what I got, because Houston is a nice first week matchup.
Agreed.
And then
on
if you want to cut him and go pick up Matt Ryan or Kirk Cousins off of waivers, you can do it. Big Ben at 18, Mike. Jason's actually the highest among us with Roethlisberger at 15 on his rankings. Mike, do you view Big Ben as a great last round, start him, see what you got? You know the weapons are there, Claypool, Johnson, Juju, Najee.
Jason and I were just talking about this because I was, giving him friendly grief about him being the quarterback 15, which I immediately followed up with, I have been too low. Like 22 is not where I expect Ben Roethlisberger to finish if he's on the field. Because if he's on the field, we're going to see a lot of volume. He was, by the revisionist history, he was terrible last year is what people will say. But he threw the ball over 600 times. He had 3,800 yards. He had 33 passing touchdowns. He was
the quarterback 14.
He was the quarterback 14. The wide receivers surrounding Ben Pittsburgh did it again. They fully replenished and have an incredible trio of wide receivers to work with. And maybe Ben's arm is a little bit better this year. And Najee is a much better option that they had at the running back position last year. That includes in the passing game. So I think that Ben here of my ranking of 22 is too low. Now, does that make a difference of am I drafting Ben? That's a little bit difficult opening up the season on the road against Buffalo. That's at least it's not cold yet, but that's not necessarily how I want my fantasy football season to start. However, Vegas and Cincinnati right after that, weeks 2 and 3, Big Ben is interesting.
Big Ben is I really love Big Ben this year, and I want to explain the difference for me between he is Kirk Cousins. He is Matt Ryan. I'm down on Matt Ryan. I'm down on Kirk Cousins. The reason is because the only time I really want one of those type of guys is my quarterback 2 in a super flex league. If I'm drafting multiple quarterbacks, I want a guy like that. I want a guy who's like, yeah, he's probably going to be finished quarterback 14, 15. He's not the guy who's going to win everything for me, but plug in that spot. The difference is Big Ben is the quarterback 27. He is in a super flex league.
Yeah.
He's like one of your last picks, in a super flex league. So he was quarterback 14 last year. We all expect Deontay presumably to be better this year than he was last year. Definitely with Claypool. Juju's just doing what he's been doing. And that we haven't even mentioned Eric Ebron could catch touchdowns.
Yeah.
Pat Freiermuth was a rookie tight end I really liked. So the weapons are there. I don't think he's anything special. But he is so free that in a super flex league, I think he's mispriced.
All right. Let's close it out. Ryan Fitzpatrick at 19, Baker Mayfield at 20. And then I have some questions about some other names. But Fitzpatrick, Mike is the highest on him. All of us outside the top 12 with Fitzpatrick, obviously. Our consensus 19. I'm at 19 on the dot. Jason at 24.
Barf.
Well, you don't like that?
No, I hate that, man. I love Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I get it. I think you can love Ryan Fitzpatrick and be reasonable with this offense. I know you love Curtis Samuel. I think it's going to be a little bit of a slower offense. I think you're going to have some weeks where they don't need what would you call that? Flamboyant Fitzpatrick? I mean, like
Sure.
The Winston version of Fitzpatrick. Like, he's got different quarterbacks in him. I don't know if you knew that. He has a variety of different quarterbacks inside of him, and he turns different ones on at different times.
And if he plays 16 games, it'll be the first time in over half a decade,
As if he makes the playoffs as well.
Well, that'll be the first time ever. and he's played for over a decade. So yeah, I mean, he on a per game basis, he's got the weapons. He can run the ball shockingly, and I think he's fine for a late round streamer, a second quarterback. I'm happy with him, but the way he plays and the age that he is, I don't see him making a full season.
He's the fantasy football quarterback equivalent of driving without a seatbelt. Like, your weeks are a little sweatier with Ryan Fitzpatrick. They could end up exhilarating.
Mm-hmm.
They could end up the best ride of your life.
Oh, you're going to get there quicker, too. No, I don't need to buckle. I just hop in that car. I'm going to get there quick.
Fractions of a second?
Fractions of a second, but be careful.
Kids, buckle up.
Kids, buckle up.
Yeah, the metaphor, I'm not sure it all made sense. I don't know if it's more exhilarating not to be strapped in. What do you think, Al? Is it more exhilarating?
Of course.
I'll jump in
up.
here. I'm in on Ryan Fitzpatrick. I had already brought up the stats of a Turner offense. The Turner offense is you throw it a bunch. It doesn't matter if you have an elite defense, which they did last year, and they do this year. They still were one of the most pass-happy teams in the league, and Ryan Fitzpatrick is a better passer than what they had the last couple years. So he opens up the season at home against the Chargers and then against the Giants. That's two solid matchups. Maybe Jason's right, and the Chargers are vastly improved compared to last year, getting some pieces back. But
I'd still be happy with that. And then Atlanta in week 4. He's got a good opening schedule to the season if you want to take your shot at some magic.
And last year with the wide receiver core that Tua is getting a pass on for last year, Tua didn't have weapons last year. In 7 starts, Ryan Fitzpatrick, with those wide receivers, was averaging the 7th most fantasy points at the quarterback position, more than Herbert, more than Brady.
That's a good point.
Like Fitzpatrick will,
you jerk.
Every once in a while I get one in. And with Terry McLaurin, in my opinion, one of the best young wide receivers in the league, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is set up for some serious fantasy success this year.
We have Baker at 20, Derek Carr's at 21, Tua's at 22.
That's just a rule, though.
Yeah, 22.
22.
Like, don't blame us.
Daniel Jones 23, Sam Darnold 24. I'm not interested in any of the names I just said except for keeping my eye on Tua.
Okay.
I know he had an ugly interception to end his preseason game, but he actually looked pretty sharp to me.
He did.
He has a couple tight ends. He was leaning on Will Fuller will come back, Waddle, Parker, and a downfield passing game where, look, you try to – nobody expected all of the late-round quarterbacks that ended up winning people leagues to do what they did. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been late-round quarterbacks. So every one of those guys looks stupid now. Tua may be stupid to pick in your draft, but like Lawrence, Tua's the only other one where I'm like, well, we don't know what the ceiling is if you equip him, and he's a maturing, it's year 2.
Mm-hmm.
So
I can absolutely get that. He looked good at the beginning of the preseason game, and if you want to take your shot on a second-year quarterback who has a lot of weapons, I'm fine with that. The 2 names that I would throw out, I'm fine with Baker.
Yeah,
I think Baker actually has a chance to have a decent season. He's got a phenomenal offensive line and a great offense. Yes, they are run first, but at the same time, if Odell Beckham comes through and Jarvis and People-Jones and Kareem Hunt can grab the ball, I think that he could end up being okay, and he's drafted obviously much later than some of those safe quarterbacks earlier. And then in a super flex league, when you're looking at your 3rd quarterback, I'm still taking a shot on Sam Darnold. He's very, very young. He might be equipped for the first time in his career with a coach that can get it done and weapons with Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, Terrence Marshall, DJ Moore. I mean, the path, you can see how it would work. Well, obviously nothing in Sam Darnold's career would say, I think he's going to be great, but you can see the path forward for him to be that super late breakout guy.
if you had to lock one of those 2 players, Tua or Sam Darnold, into your lineup from week one and keep them as your quarterback through the year, who are you doing?
I would take Sam Darnold.
Oh.
All right. Mike, who would you take between the two if you had to lock them in for the year?
If I had to lock them in, I would go Tua.
What are you doing with Trey Lance and Justin Fields? Both players don't project to start the year as the starter for their teams. There's promise. There's excitement. You may have been waiting for us to say their names this entire episode because of that promise. Are you drafting them just in case?
One of them.
Yeah.
I would be willing to draft Trey Lance just in case. Use your last pick in a draft, and if he is the week one starter, I think it's more likely that he could start week one than Justin Fields. Like, Justin Fields has looked good, but they are so committed to Andy Dalton. And, you know, when they drafted Trey Lance, obviously at that point there was not a quarterback competition, right? This will be Trey Lance's job. It's just a matter of when. And I think the reason I'm willing to take the shot on Lance and I'm not on Fields is because if you're talking about Lance, I think will have 350 rushing yards on the course of a season. But as a rookie, 350 rushing yards and a rookie year of passing is probably not going to be great. Whereas I think Lance could have
Fields.
You were talking about Justin Fields.
Goodness gracious!
Yes,
I was talking about
saying
Justin
Lance
Fields.
over and over and over.
Yeah, we were trying to figure it out.
Thank you, guys. Lance, I think, has the chance to
Hold
have.
on, let's go. So Justin
Fields probably only rushes for 350
Okay.
yards if he starts the season, has rookie passing, and probably won't be enough for me to be super happy in fantasy. Not enough to stash him on my bench when he's probably not even going to play week one, whereas Lance, his rushing is such a big part of the game that I think he could have, 600-700 rushing yards and have a Russell Wilson-esque rookie season or a Dak Prescott-esque rookie season where it's really good for fantasy.
I couldn't help but see Russell Wilson in the Justin Fields performance this past week. Pocket escaping on the move, I was so impressed.
He looked really good.
It's hard to weed through both of those situations for me because Lance has the highest upside between the two, period. He's got a better play caller and system and all of that. But
far more weapons around him too.
But it's it should for any team be easier to move on from Andy Dalton than it is Jimmy Garoppolo. We say what we say about him, but his record as a starter is unbelievably good. And, you listen to John Lynch in the booth talk about him, and you listen to I just don't really know how they're playing it. Maybe they're just lying through their teeth. But when Jimmy's played, when he's been healthy, his record is ridiculoly good.
They got to the Super Bowl.
So they've won. I don't remember what it is. Brooks, I don't know if you can figure that out. It's something 20-6, something like that as a starter. So
that being said, in the division, you see a lot of similarities with the incredible record of Jared Goff and him getting him to a Super Bowl. And it's but you're not who we want.
Well,
see you later.
No, you're right. And the thing is who's more likely though to go on a run of wins? It's probably Jimmy G. It's probably not Andy Dalton in Chicago.
Yes, for sure.
So, but I'm with you.
That's why they need to make the change before week one.
Yeah,
be
could that happen? I don't know.
Jimmy G keeps winning.
Well, and it's so funny because it's these starters, right? If you are Andy Dalton or Jimmy Garoppolo, the person, you get the respect of being the starter, so you play 3 plays and you're out for the game, right? But then you get to watch your replacement play the half, and then Jimmy G's. He's clapping on the sideline. Andy Dalton.
But the clapping was actually when his team dropped the passes.
I mean, right, and it's
well, incompletion. Put it on the stats.
I mean, wouldn't you almost want to be no, I don't want the starter treatment. I want the rookie treatment.
Well, they said Andy Dalton's going to play more now.
Well, yeah, I get why.
But so back to the question of, are you stashing them at the end of a draft? Yes, very 100%. I am
both
open
of them?
to no. I'm picking. I'm open to both of them, but I'm going to target Trey Lance. And if somebody is listening to the show and they're the wiser and they're able to get Lance before me, I'm okay going with Justin Fields because this is right now. We're 1 game into 1 week into preseason. There is a non-zero chance that or there is a greater than 0% chance that both of these guys start week 1. It's still in the realm of possibilities. And if news comes out today, right now, breaking news, Trey Lance is going to start, Justin Fields is going to start. Where are they ranked? Just like shoot from the hip. Where would you project them in your top 20 rankings?
Yeah, so Trey Lance would if he was starting today, he would slide into probably 7.
That's what he would be in my top 12 for sure.
But Justin Fields would. Justin Fields would be in the Trevor Lawrence
But he would be
range.
in your top 20.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with both those things. The only thing I disagree is they play the Rams week 1, so Andy Dalton's seeing the Rams. I just feed him to the wolves.
What percentage chance do you give right now that everything the 49ers are saying comes true, which is they're building packages for Trey Lance to play on offense, right? Seems like a weird thing to do.
Yes.
For a guy that's not going to be your starter, a weird thing to run through practices with. What is the percentage chance that Trey Lance does not start a game for the 49ers this season? What do you think?
0.0%.
I'll at least give it 1%.
So you guys don't see that as a realistic.
I don't know.
Where they play both guys and
Jimmy G hasn't finished any season. He's been his health has been very unreliable. And keep in mind, he plays for the 49ers, and they drop like flies over there.
Of the names today, we'll go all the way through 25. Who's the most likely to end up on your team? I think it's Kirk Cousins to me, but it could be Trevor Lawrence. Like if you're going with these later names,
I would say Jalen Hurts is going to end up on a lot of my teams, and then if I completely punt the quarterback position, it's Ryan Fitzpatrick for me.
Yeah, I would say it's between Jalen Hurts and Taysom Hill.
I totally forgot we were talking about those guys.
Who's probably on my most drafted, and then I will throw Sam Darnold in there. If I'm in a super flex league, I almost always grab him.
I hope
he doesn't cost anything.
I hope he's good, just for your sake.
I don't want to be known as like a.
It's too late.
But the thing is, I believe in the system. I believe in the players around him.
It's too
I don't
late,
believe
man.
in Darnold.
It's been one of the weird. This is not meant as an insult, but it's been one of the stranger hills you've climbed this offseason with Sam Darnold. Like I don't know, because I know you loved him coming into the NFL. So I don't know if that adoration gets a new breath now that the fog of gaze is gone.
I think that partially plays in the fact that he spent his entire career with crap coordinators.
These guys just rarely work out at this point.
I know, man. Look, this is a hill I'm climbing up on. This is not a hill I am willing to die on. I am ready to run down that hill and fetch a pail of water.
He's bringing a sled with him.
Yes, I am climbing this hill, planning to sled down. Trust me. This is not he will not be on Friday's My Guys. I can tell you that right now.
But you will.
Oh, I will victory lap if he's great.
That's what I was going to say.
I'm going up the hill, putting the flag there, and then sledding down. And later, if it works out, say, look at that.
Look at that flag.
Look at it in the wind.
Look at that Darnold flag.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even know they printed those.
I put that there.
All right. We want to thank Pristine Auction for supporting the show. There's a Calvin Ridley signed jersey up there. If you don't know about Pristine Auction, they have hundreds of daily authenticated sports memorabilia auctions, so check them out. And if you use the code BALLERS, they'll give you $10.
Ballers for dollars.
Yeah.
Ballers for $10.
So
use the code BALLERS.
Yeah, use it at pristineauction.com. Tight end ranking show tomorrow, tips and tricks on Wednesday, mock draft Thursday, My Guys Friday. This is the time. Make sure you subscribe.
Baby. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.